Hi everyone, Drini here, and welcome to my channel. So we're going to talk about something different today and not just your typical technical analysis because, to be honest, nothing much is happening in the markets. Now, for those of you who have been in the crypto space or the metaverse space for a while, you would know that apart from the tokens and apart from some of the NFT assets like heroes, equipment, etc., a lot of projects in the gaming crypto space also offer land. And while it's very tempting to ape into land, because of course you want to support the game developers, you want to support the game, and more importantly, you want to have an investment on a particular asset that will help secure your financial freedom in the future, or at least give you a lot of returns, we do have to be very careful because lands in the metaverse are not created equal. So today, what I want to do in this video is to not only analyze the landscape, quote unquote, of lands across various gaming cryptos. The real objective here is, regardless of my judgment, what I want you to take away from watching this is to have a systematic framework of assessing whether land in a particular gaming crypto project is worth investing in. So after looking at the landscape of crypto games and the lands that they offer, we can categorize lands into four major buckets. The first category of land in the metaverse is what I would call the central premise. What the central premise category means is land is the most important asset for that particular gaming crypto project. The entire project revolves around having land in the first place. So the gaming crypto projects that sort of fall into this space would be Decentraland, Pavia, Sandbox, and Heroes of Mavia. So with Sandbox, it is quite easy. The central premise of Sandbox is ownership of land in the first place. So that doesn't mean, of course, that you cannot play in the Sandbox universe without land. The entire game revolves around land ownership, because if you look at what Sandbox is, it is pretty much a choose-your-own adventure in various plots in its metaverse. You're able to create as many experiences as you can, and the way for you to be able to craft these experiences is to own that particular land so that you can create them and provide entertainment to millions of people out there. The way you can actually identify whether or not the land is the key component that everything revolves around it is take note of whether it is sold first. So projects like Decentraland, Pavia, the Sandbox, land was the very first thing, apart from the token, that they have sold publicly for people to own. So when I look through another game like Heroes of Mavia, for example, Heroes of Mavia once again also revolves around land. The game itself is very similar to a Clash of Clans type of game. So you need land in the first place in order to build your base. Then you can defend it against enemy invaders, and of course you can lead an army, etc., etc. Very similar to Clash of Clans style of gaming. When you look at how important land is for this particular game, this is the very first thing that they've sold, and heroes and statue NFTs actually come after. The second category of land assets are what I call highly integrated. It is not the central component of the entire game, but it forms a very important component for the entire economy and ecosystem of that particular game. There are a couple of examples of this. The first one is Cornucopias, and the second one is Star Atlas. So for Cornucopias, the entire objective of Cornucopias is there's an island that's pretty much a getaway for its community or its players to have a play-to-earn, build-to-earn, and learn-to-earn system. And that means being able to participate in games, acquiring land in order to build, mine resources, sell those resources in the marketplace. Because the way Cornucopias works is, think of Cornucopias as a 3D version of Stardew Valley. Star Atlas is another example of a potential highly integrated land asset in the particular game. Because it is not just ships that you need in order to participate in Star Atlas. You would also need, of course, to mine resources in order to support the economy of shipbuilding, trading, etc., etc. The third category of land assets in the metaverse is what I call the game can live without it. And there are a number of examples here. Primarily, Illuvium, Axie Infinity, Splinterlands, Mines of Delarnia, and Metagods. And the reason why we categorize these lands as the game can live without it is not part of the central gameplay loop. So what I mean by this is, take Splinterlands for example. Splinterlands is a card game. So the introduction of land in the Splinterlands universe is only a supplemental feature of the primary gameplay loop, which is card battles. One thing to note about this classification is while we categorize it as you can really have a play to earn mechanic without it, it is still fairly important enough that it contributes a significant portion to the eventual economy of Splinterlands. Because eventually what's going to happen is apart from these card battles, the land outputs, which are supplemental cards, can be used to enhance your experience in order for you to win more. But you can live without it. It is not necessary in order to have a good experience. Axie Infinity as well. So while land is going to be featured as an important component, at the current state of Axie Infinity, it is a PvP battle with Axies. It is very typical to a Pokemon style, which of course, land is a very, very secondary feature in order for you to have a good experience. Mines of the Larnia is also an example where the land asset here is really something that you can live without. Why is that? That is because Mines of the Larnia is a 2D platformer game that focuses on gathering resources and selling those resources, using those resources to upgrade your equipment so you can carry on with the gameplay loop of mining. You can have a good experience. You can have significant return of investments for the hours that you put in here. The land is pretty much just a supplementary aspect of it because if you own that particular land, then sure, you have the cut of resources. But at the end of the day, it is something that you can definitely live without. Metagods is another example of its particular land where you don't really need it. Because Metagods is an MMORPG. So for an MMORPG where you are dungeon crawling, you can access the game and you can access its dungeons freely as long as you have the relevant NFTs. But owning land, of course, is a plus, but it is not necessary for you to have a good time and or earn money while doing it. One good way of really understanding whether or not the game can live without it is if it takes a while for them to even sell the land in the first place. When you look at the roadmap of a particular project, if land is near the end of it, then that means the primary gameplay loop does not revolve land. Land is just a supplemental feature. That's kind of how you know whether or not a particular project has land that is really valuable for its ecosystem. And finally, the fourth category is what I call a WTF category. It is completely unnecessary for this particular project to even have land in the first place. There are a number of projects that belong in this category. The first one is Bomb Crypto. The second one is MetaWars. The third one is Imposters, and the fourth one is CryoWar. So, for example, while I love CryoWar, while I think it's going to be a project that it's going to be successful, them offering land when you read the white paper is really a head scratcher because they are a PvP style game, very similar to Thetan Arena, very similar to League of Legends or PUBG, where the heroes and the NFTs are important. So what is the point of having land here in the first place? Land has no role here apart from just the development of DeFi or whatever other gaming mechanic that they will try to shoehorn in here. But the primary game mechanic does not require land at all. When you're trying to shoehorn land in and it really is a misfit, justifying its value becomes a real challenge and you are losing out on investing it in something else rather than in an asset that does not have a good fit with the particular game. Imposters as well, where they're going to sell land, is also a bit funny because Imposters, once again, is very similar to Among Us, where it is about finding the killer. So land here is a giant WTF because why do you need land in this particular game? And once again, one thing about these particular projects is it's really a WTF when look at land and when it is going to be sold. It is the last thing in their particular roadmap. And this just emphasizes that land in this particular project is really a useless NFT because it is not included in the primary game loop, which is very, very incompatible with this particular concept right here. MetaWars' Planet NFT is also a WTF because right now, if you look at what the planets are for, they're for connecting to other projects so that if you are a planet holder, you have access to private sales of other projects' tokens. This is how you know that this particular mechanic is really not worth it because trying to justify why you have a particular land or planet in the first place does not coincide with the primary gaming loop. Planet ownership allows you to earn airdrops for other shitty projects. On one hand, it's like, okay, thanks for the introduction to other projects, but on the other hand, the planet benefit has nothing to do with the primary gameplay loop of MetaWars, which is PvP, dealing with robots, and dealing with missions. So there you go. Primary lesson here is don't just ape into land. because land types are very different across the metaverse. Make sure you really limit yourself with land assets that really provide a lot of value for that particular game. At the end of the day, you may argue with me on whether or not crypto projects belong in these classifications. I don't really care. The takeaway here is really providing a classification criteria for you so that you can slot whatever crypto projects that you want into these four categories. Land as the central premise of that particular game, land as a highly integrated component of its entire gameplay loop, land where the game can really live without it because it is just a supplemental feature to the gameplay loop of that particular game in crypto, and of course, the WTF category where it is not even worth paying attention to because the entire premise of land for that particular game is really just shoehorned in.